Hey, welcome back to another Just 5 Mins. An agent, my kingdom for an agent. Don't we all want agents? Do we know what agents are? We must know what agents are, you know. But anyway, do you actually even need an agent? Well, I have to say, from a coding perspective, it's nothing but agents. I think... you know, I read somewhere that, you know, prompting, you know, or one-shot prompts, as they call it, are sort of fading about. I don't think any of this, there's no absolutes, really. But Andrej Karpathy is the guy that, you know, usually a lot of people pick up on, you know, what he says, because I think he was one of the key people at OpenAI originally or something, then left and did other things, you know, went on his own, and apparently in the last couple of days of the time of this recording anyway, is joined Anthropic. So, and I think it's to do with, you know, this second brain idea. And I've got a video coming up on that soon. Let's face it, we're all drowning in data. And do we really go back and actually look at data? Maybe not. I'm a kleptomaniac. I'm a data kleptomaniac. I really am. I can't help it. I think it's a FOMO thing. And I know I'm doing it. You know, it's like I know I'm half the stuff I bookmark, I probably never go back to. But I used Pocket for a long time, but then they closed down. But for the last couple of years, at least, maybe 3 years, I've been using Raindrop.io. And I think, you know, that's actually one of the better ones. It's cross-platform. It's got a really nice way of looking at bookmarks. And I've got way too much categorization. It looks like I'm really organized, and I'm really not. But the problem is, do you go back and look at that stuff? Well, occasionally I have. But why am I telling you all this anyway? Because there's agents that can act on all of this stuff. So the idea is I'm using Obsidian. If you don't know what Obsidian is, I've got a video on that, or just 5 minutes somewhere. It's a note-taking, knowledge-base type article using Markdown. So that's that text format structure. Really good, lots of plugins, and I'm using it. It's got a cool graph type thing that shows up when you've got all your linkages. But in my case, there's far too many. So that's why I'm getting the AI agent, my personal AI agent, to go and look at. But what I've done in the first place is actually consolidate that so that it's got the data is in the right structure, which is marked down and categorized in certain folders so that it is a little bit meaningful. But anyway, do we even need agents? OpenClaw, you know, yeah, that's been around. I did try it. I never really had a success with it. I know a lot of people do, so I'm not slating it. It's just that you can run into a lot of cost. I just wonder, well, not only because everybody went out and bought a Mac Mini because they thought that was the only thing they could run it on, you know, as opposed to a $4 a month VPS on any one of the plethora of hosting companies out there. You just need a Linux-based, well, you could use Windows, but a Linux-based server. You know, $4 a month I'm paying, you know, for one. And I did try OpenClaw, but there were some, let's face it, security concerns. We can say that, you know, all that type of stuff. And whatnot, you know, there's a lot of stuff there. So I ended up going through, and it's not my own work. I borrowed a lot of this stuff from somebody else that I saw on YouTube. Of course, everything's stolen, isn't it? But basically, I built my own AI agent because I wanted to go from literally a blank sheet of paper and say, well, what does it take, you know, to build some of this stuff? So, yeah, you know, I went through starting from scratch, okay, and it wasn't that tricky to actually do. Yeah, you know, ideally you need a bit of coding knowledge, but obviously AI was helping me build it anyway. And if you do want to reach out, I'm going to be doing a video on this. Just let me know in the comments, because you can build it and you can literally host it for about $4 a month. Now, obviously, I'm not a security expert, so, you know, take this with a pinch of salt, but there isn't really any external ports that are not whitelisted. So, for instance, there isn't any open incoming ports that are not secured. I use Telegram because everybody uses Telegram. So easy to set up as a chat interface that you can use on your desktop or mobile or whatever. But that is, as long as you follow the rules, as it were, it's as secure as it could be, because it's connecting into that virtual server, but the server's actually going out to the data, not Telegram coming in. So anyway, the short of it is, I basically built that with Telegram as an interface, but I also use Twilio with a real telephone number, so I can actually call my agent and it can actually call me with updates if it really wants to. That could get annoying very quickly. I've mentioned this before, but essentially some of the foundations that I use was Supabase, which is free. Okay, well, it's free for most users on low volume stuff like your personal assistant. And why is that there? Well, it's there to record and remember a lot of stuff about you, because the whole point of the agent is to give context about you. But when you're asking stuff, for it to actually hook into the LLM, I think I'm using Anthropic, but I'm not using Claude Code because they've tightened down on that. I'm using Anthropic API key, but and this is the bit, I burnt through so many tokens initially when I was testing this, and luckily it was about $8 or something that I burnt through. And this is the problem. I think this is the unknown problem that people go into. They set all this up and suddenly they've got bills of like $80, $100 a month, or otherwise they're paying like, $100, $200 a month for a max plan or something. This doesn't, and I can show you in the video my absolute legitimate authentic sort of bill, and the reason why that is quite low so the LLM bit is Anthropic, and I built essentially a router, whichever way you say it, so that it knows the type of question that I ask. It can, for most things, it can use one of the cheaper Haiku models or Sonnet or something, and only if I've got a real challenge for it that it uses Opus or something like that. So it's got a router to actually use that, and it will actually tell me that it's going to be using those higher token usage, costly models. But I seriously put $10 on there about 3 months ago, and I've also set like a hard limit of $10, so it won't burn over that. And after 3 months, I'm still at about $8. So it's used about $2. Okay, so that's the backbone LLM, because obviously, yeah, you could set this up with local LLMs, and they are getting better. Gemma 4 from Google and Kimi and all those ones, but they sort of all sound really good until you really put them to the test, and then I don't know, they're not quite there yet. I think they will get there. But anyway, I'm using Anthropic, who make Claude, but it isn't using Claude Code or anything. It's using the API key. Okay. Supabase is my storage, and it's free. I can't remember the limits, but the sort of usage that you'd be doing personally is minimal. And what it also does is store your questions in vectors. So vectors, in short, are just meanings of words converted into arrays of numbers that the LLMs will be able to use. So it knows that context. And so the other thing I am using, ironically, is an OpenAI key. And the reason I'm using that is because OpenAI have got one of the cheapest text embedding options that there is. It's pennies for over over a 6-month period. And the reason for that embedding is it takes your text or voice that gets converted to text and vectorizes that into the numbers that I mentioned before that the LLMs can then use, and that they know the context, and it'll keep the memory. So that's what Supabase is doing. It's got context for me, but also it's got memory. So that's an important thing there. Like I said, I use Telegram as the key interface. I've used Twilio because I've got a real phone number. It doesn't cost much either, a couple of dollars every few months or something silly. And I went a little bit crazy because I do have a lot of those Echo devices. And I really just wanted to see, because I did build an Echo or one of those Alexa. I have to do it quietly, sort of apps before, but I've got that now. So I can also talk to my Echo device and say, hey, have a word with my bot to do whatever. So I've got multiple channels. None of that is really costing anything. And like I say, this was built up from scratch. Technology-wise, it uses Node.js. I think I use Bun JS at the start, but it's Node.js. But again, don't be put off by all of this these days. You don't need to know a huge amount, and I'll show you. Like I say, reach out. I'm going to do a video with hopefully maybe even some, mentoring. And when I say mentoring, I don't know everything. I really don't. But it might be a little bit more than and it's enough to get you on the track. But I do know from a cost perspective, $4 or so for a VM, a Linux VM that you can run. And this thing, it's not open to the internet. Like I say, it's all locked down and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, the reason I'm saying all of this, I wanted to do that to actually see what was actually involved. And by the way, it does do things like, it runs in the background as a loop. So I can say, well, look, every morning at 8 o'clock, go and check my calendar, do this, go and, check the emails and give me, if there's anything really important, let me know. And it'll either let me know on Telegram by default. But if I said, oh, ring me because I know I'm going to be out or something like that, you've got Telegram anyway, but it'll actually call me. So I get a little message. I'm thinking, I recognize that number. And it's my agent calling me. So anyway, but it was a real experiment, but it works. It is actually working. So back to the other stuff where, do you even need an agent? And look, I get it. If you've got a family and you've got lots of weird and wonderful things going, but is it really worth the cost of buying Macs or VMs and $100 or $200 a month for, your LLM subscription? I don't know if it's worth it to you. Brilliant. That's not an issue, is it? But, it's, it's, I think for everyday usage, it's just a bit too much. And especially with OpenClaw, I know it's got better and I'm not knocking it. I really am not. I think, it got an amazing lift, didn't it? But the other one that I've been looking at that I must admit seems to be, and it's inevitable, isn't it? I think OpenClaw sort of got was the front runner really with all of this. But there's something now called Hermes, basically, Hermes Agent, which I've been playing with. But it's sort of learning, and it's got a lot of that stuff where it's secure out the box, and it's I think they're learning a lot of lessons from OpenClaw and all that sort of stuff. So that's another one I'm trying. But again, you don't need a massive resource. You need, a small VM to run it on, set it up. But you do have to be a little bit careful with these LLMs and token usage. I think, and I don't know this exactly, but Hermes, I think, has got something like the router thing that I've built in my own. And by the way, when I say built, it's not very clever, but it routes the right agent based on what you're asking. Okay. But Hermes looks good. But then the final thing I was going to, because it's gone way over 5 minutes as usual. The final thing I was going to say, with all of these independent sort of like agenty things, whether you've built one yourself or you've got, OpenClaw or this Hermes agent. I'll put some links below, by the way. You look at how a lot of these big players are going. Google have just announced, is it Spark or something, at the recent 2026 I/O conference, which is your personal agent on not just Android, but iOS as well, interestingly. Claude has got co-work that you can work with. OpenAI has got agents in ChatGPT. So, to be honest, I think it's getting to the point where, maybe it's all becoming, it's going to be uplifting onto those sort of platforms, if you want to use those, of course, because they're going to be running 24/7 and you don't have to install anything as such. You need the chat interface or whatever, like ChatGPT, but ultimately they're all going to be running on the background. You don't need to provision a server. You don't have to install things and go through all that sort of setup. So it's probably going to go that way for most people, certainly for convenience, I think. But again, look at what, like Google have said, they're introducing a $100 a month plan for this Spark agent. I mean, that's not trivial amount of money, is it? ChatGPT, I think, have done a clever thing, because the $20 a month pro plan, you can build agents in there. And it's still $20 at the moment. I don't know how long that'll carry on. But Anthropic, certainly, if you're going to use OpenClaw and stuff, you don't always. I'm not trying to do scaremongering or anything, but, a lot of stuff that I've read, people are paying, 50 to 100 or even up to 200 a month for the usage. And are they really getting the value out of it? I don't know. Like I said, if they are, brilliant. But anyway, I'm going to just stop there because I've rambled on far too long. But yeah, reach out if you do want to get involved with building your own agent to see how and why and, how it works. Then let me know and we'll organise something. But otherwise, I'm going to say thank you for listening. If you did listen to all this way through, wherever you are in the world, have a good day, a good week, and I'll catch you on the next one.